Family. Like it or not, we all have one. You may have tried to ignore your family, but they're still there. Right down the hall from your room, actually. Your family may be big, it may be small, it may be somewhere in the middle. But no matter what it looks like, families all have one thing in common. No family is perfect. Maybe you think your mom is too strict. Maybe your little brother won't stop going through your stuff. Maybe your grandmother follows you on Instagram. Pretty cool grandma right there, but we get it. Sometimes it's enough to make you literally count the days until you get out of school and get out of your house. One problem though, you can't quit your family. Because what happens today impacts your tomorrow, and the next day, and the one after that. Okay, it basically impacts your entire future. But here's the thing. Just because families aren't perfect doesn't mean you need to bail on the whole bunch. In fact, not only can you survive your family, you can impact what it's like in your home. So whether you're the golden child or the black sheep, you can find your family's silver lining.
Okay, imagine that it is a beautiful 70-degree day. All right, that may be hard for some of you to imagine right now, but just imagine it anyway, okay? It's like one of those days it's absolutely perfect outside, not too hot, not cold, like the kind of day where you drive with the windows down. You know, you wish you had a Jeep with the top down. So you're hanging out with some friends. You go to somebody's house, you're gonna watch a movie, everybody sits down, then you sneak over, just because you're sneaky like that, and you change the thermostat. You're just like, I don't know, I'm just gonna crank the heat up to 95 degrees. So you just go ahead and do that. You crank it up to 95 degrees, put it on the heat, and then you go and hang out on the back porch. Now, after 30 minutes, what do you think the mood's gonna be like in the living room? Yeah, I mean, your friends are gonna be sweating buckets. They're gonna be getting frustrated, wondering why it's so stuffy in there, why the feeling in the room changed so much. Meanwhile, you're outside on the back porch feeling great. Hey, it's a beautiful day. Maybe somebody comes out there and sits down next to you and they're like, man, it's so hot today. I just can't understand it. And you're like, I don't know what you mean. It's perfect out here. It's a beautiful 70 degrees. See, look, in that moment, your 70-degree experience couldn't be any more different than their 95-degree heat on experience, right? Now, that's just a crazy little example, but you've actually experienced something like this in life. Did you know that every room in your house, it has a temperature? It has a climate, not just an actual temperature in the room, it has that, but like a feeling, a mood, a climate. And did you know that everyone, that's you, me, hold the power to adjust the climate wherever we go? See, you know, we've all been in a situation, maybe with friends or family, where someone walked in and brought all kinds of like tension and discomfort and awkwardness and anger and stress with them. And it was like in one moment, they changed the climate in the room. Everyone felt it. You know, maybe your stepdad does this when he comes home from work and he's just so stressed, and all of a sudden, everybody gets a little more stressed. Or maybe your little sister does that, like she walks in a room and there's all kinds of drama that comes in with her, and all of a sudden, it just feels a little more uncomfortable in the room. They don't think about it, maybe you've never thought about it, but it's just like when they walk in, the temperature changes. Now, the cool thing is that the opposite is true as well. That you and me, we can make a climate better. We can improve the temperature in a room. Maybe you have a friend who just brings happiness wherever she goes. You know, you're just so happy, happy, happy. You know, you have a friend maybe who just seems to know how to make tense situations more peaceful. You know, it's like there can be all this drama and people are frustrated or, you know, saying stuff to each other. And it's like, you know, he just seems to know how to calm everyone down and change things for the better. Now, have you ever considered the fact that you have that kind of power too? No, you do. It's true. When you walk in a room, people feel a temperature. And you're either making things warmer and more pleasant, or you're bringing in a rain cloud with you everywhere you go. Now, when you're at school or you're hanging out with your friends or teammates, you know, bandmates, castmates, whatever it is, most of you probably try to put your best foot forward, right? You're kind of on your A game. You know, you're working hard to, you know, be your best, or maybe just have fun, or, you know, you're cracking jokes, or y'all are just hanging out somewhere, you know, going out to eat, and everybody's in a good mood. And then you go home. Maybe you're tired, it's a long day, or you're worn out. And whether you realize it or not, a lot of you bring home a climate change. You bring a mood, you bring a temperature with you that's not doing anyone in your family any favors. Like you get instantly annoyed, or you're grumpy. I don't know who says the word grumpy, but I just said it, short-tempered, impatient, and you're just so quick to see how everyone in your family is making you act this way. Or everyone just made you feel this way. My stepmom made me feel this way. My little brother made me feel this way without ever considering that they all may have been just fine before you showed up. Now, it's not that there's a temperature in the room, but that you have the power to change it. And especially when it comes to your family. Have you thought about the climate that you bring to your family, that you bring home? The temperature that you bring can actually determine how a night's going to go at home. Or maybe you're going to sit down and have dinner, how dinner's going to go. Maybe you're going to go on a family outing, you don't want to go. Your climate, it may just determine everyone's climate for that outing. And see, in high school or middle school, you may find yourself complaining over the lack of power or control you have in your life, especially with your families. You're like, I don't control things. I don't decide things. I don't get to choose this. But you have way more power than you think you do because you can change the mood in every room you walk into, even if it's just a little bit. And maybe even in the process, in just a small way, you can even change your family. So let me ask you a question. What are you doing to the temperature in the room when it comes to your family? Are you helping it or are you hurting it? And if someone else brings the climate down, are you doing anything to bring the climate back up? So we've been talking this whole series about our old friend from the Bible, the Old Testament, Joseph, and Joseph's story. It's just this crazy, epic story. All these highs, all these lows, from being sold into slavery, to being blamed for assault, to being mistakenly imprisoned, to then being put in charge of the entire nation of Egypt. I mean, this dude, his life was a crazy one. And now we get to kind of the end. The last chapter of Genesis is also the last chapter of Joseph's life. And we see him changing the climate in his entire family in a pretty subtle but impactful way. So here's the scene. His entire family has moved to Egypt. And when I say his entire family, I mean probably about 150 people. You have aunts, uncles, cousins, third and a half cousins or whatever. Everybody's showing up. They're bringing all their stuff. They're bringing all their cattle. They got goats and cows running around. I don't really know if that's true, but let's just assume they did. So this big road trip shows up in Egypt. And once the family's there, Joseph's father, Jacob, passes away. Now, this sent a tidal wave of fear through Joseph's brothers. The Bible says it this way. When Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, "What if Joseph holds a grudge against us and pays us back for all the wrongs we did to him?" Now, that's a pretty legitimate fear. I mean, they did sell him into slavery. And you think about the fact that maybe they thought, well, Joseph's just allowing us to live because his dad's still alive. As soon as dad passes away, now all of a sudden the gloves are going to come off and Joseph's basically going to do whatever he wants. I mean, can you imagine the conversations? Levi, it's Gad here. Now that dad's gone, do you think Joseph will take us out one by one? Maybe he'll take us all out at the same time. Do you think he'll kill us in a very slow, painful way or just make it quick and painless? I mean, all of a sudden the climate in their family, it was tense. I mean, it's uncomfortable. It's very fearful. But Joseph didn't let it stay that way. And what Joseph says shows us how quickly a mood can change just by what we say. Check this out. But Joseph said to them, "Don't be afraid. Am I in the place of God? You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. So then," he says it again, "don't be afraid. I will provide for you and your children." Man, it's pretty dramatic and it's pretty powerful. And see, Joseph didn't sweep anything under the rug. He didn't put on this plastic smile, pretend like everything was okay. He called out the awkwardness by saying, "You meant it for harm." Then he says, "But I've forgiven you and I trust that God will use it for good." And see, you can't fake that kind of just maturity and authenticity. He essentially said, even though it was your fault, I don't blame you. God has grace for you, and guess what? I have grace for you too. And that was a game changer. Then the author of Genesis describes to us two specific things that Joseph did to change the climate. Genesis 50:21 says this, "And he reassured them and spoke kindly to them." That's a big deal. I don't want you to miss that. First thing is he reassured them. He made sure they knew it was going to be okay. And again, like I said, he didn't act like everything was perfect. But, we can't only guess how he reassured them. Maybe he went over and hugged them. Maybe it was fist bump. Maybe they did that back in the day. Probably not. Maybe he smiled at him. Maybe he told him he loved him. I don't know. Whatever it was powerful enough for the author to capture it and pass it along to us. And Joseph wasn't just trying to look good or sound good or be cool or be the nice guy. He genuinely wanted to make sure his brothers knew how seriously he took his relationship with them. That's a big deal. The second thing was he spoke kindly to them. Now, this is huge. This wasn't just about which words Joseph used, but it was also about the way he said them. And see, you know this. You've done this before. You can make someone feel really dumb, or you can make someone feel really awesome just by how you use your tone. He wasn't trying to get any jabs in by saying the right words in a way that cut or hurt his brothers. I mean, sometimes you can say something really nice and it comes across really sarcastic. Joseph's tone to his brothers was kind. And again, that is such a big deal. And we learn that as kids, but it is just so powerful the way it can just restore relationships and improve the climate. After all that he had been through, Joseph had every right to make the climate revolve around him, and his anger, his hurt, his unforgiveness, his power, the position of power he was in, he could have brought all this drama with him. Instead, he created a climate that led to forgiveness. It led to healing, and it led to the possibility of them moving forward together. The relationship stayed intact. See, Joseph did that, and he had every reason not to. And see, what about you? And I know you're sitting here thinking, Ben, you don't know my family. You don't know the way people treat me. You don't know the way people talk to me and all of that. But you know that you can change the mood in every room you walk into. And I'm going to give you two quick steps I think that have the potential to improve every climate around you. And first is this, how you use your words. See, whether or not you've ever thought about it, you've experienced this truth. Negative words have a much more powerful impact on your brain than positive words. In fact, there's been studies that have done that actually prove that it takes 5 positive interactions to erase 1 negative one. The Message version of the Bible says Proverbs 18:21. It puts it this way. It says, "Words kill, words give life. They're either poison or fruit. You choose." See, you know this because you've been on the receiving end of negative words. You know what that feels like. But what if you started seeing your words as having the power to change a climate in a positive way? Man, you started seeing your words having the power of life and the power of death. For every negative word you speak, you need to begin speaking 5 positive words to undo the damage. And see, like we said earlier, listen, how you say something is just as important, if not more important, than what you say. Tone matters. Say that again. Your tone matters. So now, having said all that, I want you to think about your parents, step-parents, your siblings, and the people you live with every day, or you just live with on the weekends. How would they say you're doing with this? When it comes to your words, do you set the thermostat at a comfortable temperature when you walk in a room? Or do you crank it up and then walk right out of there? How are you doing when it comes to your words? And here's the second thing, is how you see people, how you view people, how you look at them. When it comes to creating a healthy climate, you need more than just kind words. It needs to go deeper than that. Your words don't mean very much if your attitude and your life say something completely different. See, if you want to bring a positive climate, you have to begin believing that God can and will do something great in your family. Look, no matter what your family looks like right now, the bad in your family isn't so big, it isn't so overwhelming that God can't bring good. Joseph believed that, and literally he had every reason to play the victim in his family, bring a downer attitude with him everywhere he went, but God trumped his difficult circumstances. Joseph saw, hey, God's role is more powerful than my problems and all of my family drama. And this affected the climate that Joseph brought with him everywhere. See, believing God is bigger, believing God is good and God is capable, it will affect the attitude that you have about your family. And it will affect the climate you have around them. When you start believing, hey, what is possible? What could God do? Look, people notice, they respond. When you start believing the best, that could be the very thing that creates a climate change in your family. And see, your family, their actions, they don't have to determine yours. You don't have to respond the way they respond. You don't have to speak the way that your parents speak. You don't have to talk to people the way that your siblings talk to people. You don't have to handle conflict and anger the way that everyone in your family handles it. You can change the mood in every room you walk into, no matter what anyone else does. And see, I want you to resist the temptation to just to react to how your siblings and your step-siblings react, or just react to the way your parents and step-parents act. And I want you to make the decision to be the one who brings a change to your family. Just one mood, one day, one room at a time. See, I don't know how great or how tough your family is right now. I have no idea. Maybe this series encouraged you, or maybe it made you realize your family is crazier than the families on a reality show. Either way, God has put you in your family for a reason. And that's not just some churchy cliche. It is actually true. I want you to think about this. It's not an accident that you're in your family. And you have a choice whether or not to act on that. No matter how dark the clouds are in your family, there's hope. There's a silver lining. You know why? Because God is a God who takes broken things and he makes them new. He empowers normal people with normal, messed up families, and you can have hope. And listen, hope is a powerful thing, and that's what silver lining is all about. When you start believing, and with God's help, start believing and looking for the silver lining, you might just be surprised at the changes that you can see happen. You got to believe that God can do more in your family than you or I or our crazy circumstances we could ever imagine. And don't just wait for it to happen. Make it happen with God's help. To begin just saying, hey, I want to bring love. I want to bring forgiveness. I want to be the one who speaks kindly. I want to be the one who treats people well, and just watch how the climate of your family changed, just like it did with Joseph. See, you can be the one to look for, and you can be the one to bring a silver lining into your family.